What's up, fight fans? Welcome to a Fight Thoughts breakdown where we give some preview into the upcoming fight between David Bandera Roja Benavidez and Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade on Saturday, November 25th. With the initial press conference kicking off the countdown, we're going to take an early look into how these two match up. So without further ado, let's get started with the tale of the tape. David is a younger man by about 9 years, which could play a role in this fight. David is heading into what is usually a fighter's peak years, while Andrade at 35 seems to be closer to the back end of his career. Although it shouldn't be a defining factor, I do think it does have a small role to play. I think size is going to play a bigger role. David stands at 6 foot 2 inches tall, while Demetrius stands at 6 foot. Boo Boo's a naturally smaller fighter, originally starting off at 154 before heading north to 160, where he captured a vacant WBO championship and then making the jump to 168. He's against one of the bigger guys in the division, which could cause problems for Andrade. I think David's size is definitely going to come into play, especially as the rounds drag on. Size coupled with a slight reach advantage, I think will give Andrade some issues to have to work through. Now I want to take a little deeper look into the records of each fighter to try to gauge how each fighter comes into this upcoming fight based on their level of competition, recent activity, and just overall resume. While both fighters are undefeated coming into this fight, I think they both lack some depth in the resume department. I don't mean it as a shot to the fighters. It's just what I see when I look through the resume of either guy. While David has defeated former world champion Caleb Plant, which I believe by far is his best win to date. Even though he was tested early on, he stuck to the task and ended up securing the win. It was also his most recent fight, so I think David should come into this fight a bit sharper than Boo Boo. Now, Andrade's last fight was at the beginning of the year in January, coming out victorious against an unheralded Damon Nicholson by unanimous decision. It's not a very highly touted win. Boo Boo hasn't had much luck with potential matchups throughout his career. Several issues have kept Demetrius from filling out the resume a bit better, so while I believe Andrade's best win is against Liam Williams, winning by unanimous decision in 2021, I believe David has an edge in the resume department. In terms of stoppages, David is the clear favorite, with 23 of his 27 wins coming by way of stoppage. David is widely considered the bigger knockout threat, and his record certainly shows it. That's not to say Andrade doesn't have a chance. Andrade has registered 19 knockouts out of his 32 wins, although I think it's each fighter's style that dictates how their KO percentage presents itself. David is a more aggressive come-forward type, while Demetrius relies more so on movement and outside boxing to get the job done. I'm of the opinion, like most boxing fans, styles make fights, and in this one we're looking at a pretty traditional matchup between a pressure fighter against a boxer, so I want to take a look at each fighter's keys to victory. The David Benavidez recipe seems kind of simple on its face, but it has a couple layers when you look a bit deeper. Most people can watch David and get the basic gist of his style rather quickly, but there is a bit of nuance. David is a come-forward pressure fighter through and through. He's looking to impose his size and his stature on his opponents to wear them down as the rounds go by. He also looks to step up his attacks as the fight goes on. He works behind a very jab and works to get in close to attack the body and land his combination punches. So key number one for me is consistent forward pressure. He has to use his jab to get in close, but he also has to use it out at distance, while Andrade might be looking to move. He has to keep it in his face consistently so he can set up the rest of his offense. He also has to use it as a kind of a safety barrier to keep Andrade at bay while on the outside. Another tool David has in his bag is kind of a shuffling straight right hand. He uses it to close the distance and get into position to land the bread and butter combinations, like his hooks and his uppercuts. Also varies it to the body. He has to use all of those combinations to try to impose his will and wear down Demetrius as the fight goes on. So key number two is create openings. David uses basic framing techniques to create space and get shots off while in close. Although frames aren't technically legal tactics, all good fighters know how to use them, and great fighters are experts in them. In this fight, I feel they're going to be very important because I expect the clinches to happen fairly often. So I think it's important to use frames and create small openings to land punches on target, because Andrade is, for the most part, a defensively responsible fighter. David uses frames kind of like quick posts, or he'll frames off through your head. basically to put you in position to try to land a punch. While technically not legal, if you do it quick enough or you're subtle enough with him, the ref might not notice, or he might let you get by with it. So I think it'll play an important role in this fight in particular, because I do expect some clinching to happen. And if the clinching does happen, David still has to figure out a way to keep the pressure coming. So key number 3 is simply land your combinations, the bread and butter. If David's going to win this fight, he has to land combinations. David usually pressures on early with singles while he's chasing you down, and he tends to turn it up as the fight goes on once he feels more comfortable. If David's landing combinations, he is in his element, and sometimes it looks like he's even enjoying himself in the ring. Hooks, uppercuts, quick flurries are all his signature shots that need to land in order for David to win. I believe if David executes a game plan with these 3 keys, he'll stand a very good chance at winning the fight. Demetrius Andrade is a whole other story. Originally more of a pure boxer, his style has adapted to be a bit unorthodox now. Standing as a southpaw, Boo Boo looks to use lateral movement to create openings, and he likes long-range shots. He's also very defensively responsible for the most part, using body movement, quick in and outs to keep himself safe. So I think it's pretty obvious. For me, key number 1 is use your movement. In and outs, lateral movements, head movements need to be the base for Andrade. He's pretty good when he's at distance and he controls where the fight takes place. He's also recently started to play around with like level changes to try to keep the opponent off balance. So if executed well, he can give Benavidez some issues, similar to how Caleb Plant was giving him early on in their fight. But the movement has to be consistent. You can't just sit there after you land a combination and wait for the counters. You have to get in, get out, and reset. If you can do that on a regular basis, it can give David some problems, as he's not very well known to cut off the ring. So I think it's very, very beneficial for Demetrius to keep moving. Use your pure boxing skills as opposed to wild haymakers, and I think he should be at least very, very safe and efficient with his work. So I think key number 2 is to keep a high work rate. Single jabs or single punches are not going to be enough to frustrate David. Boo Boo throws a good 1-2 and he knows how to punch and move, but he has to keep it up for the duration of the fight. Also, recently Andrade tends to throw unorthodox combinations and feints level changes to throw overhands. When his punches are controlled and precise, he is very accurate, but recently at least he seems to be favoring more winging overhand lefts that leave him out of position. So if he could keep the combo sharp and clean and then move, I think this with a varied attack, maybe in doubles or even triples, can be effective against David, as long as he remembers to hit and move. So key number 3 is composure. This, in my opinion, is critical. Andrade has to keep his composure. Recently I've seen Demetrius wing a lot of wild shots and overextend on a rather consistent basis, at least compared to his early career. I feel he's trying to get more power in his punches by swinging so hard, but if they miss, he tends to leave himself out of position for potential counters. I think Boo Boo is at his best when he's crisp and he's sharp and he's not throwing haymakers. Especially against a bully like David, you don't want to be out of position. You want to be in control of yourself at all times. Andrade has good timing, and if he lands a good shot or lands a good combination, he has to be able to stay calm and set his offense up instead of going crazy and trying to get him out of there. So Demetrius, in my opinion, will give David issues. Andrade is kind of unorthodox in his approach, so that alone will be interesting to see how David handles it. Also, Boo Boo being a southpaw, which David hasn't seen many of, at least not many high-level ones, could present an all-around awkward task for David. So those were the keys to victory for either guy heading into this one. If they have a game plan somewhat similar to what I've laid out, this could be a very interesting fight. Now, with the breakdown done, I want to end it by giving my initial prediction about how this fight will play out. Looking at both fighters, I see 2 good undefeated boxers willing to fight each other, which in today's era I have to appreciate. In my opinion, this is number 2 versus number 3 at 168, with the winner in line for a potential Canelo Alvarez fight. So based on my research, I would have to give the edge to David Benavidez. I just feel he's coming into this fight having fought higher level competition more recently, along with the size, the age, and all signs seem to be pointing me to pick Benavidez. I think it'll be a unanimous decision instead of a knockout, simply because I feel Andrade won't be a stationary target. I think Andrade can and probably will give David some issues, especially early on in the fight. I think David's pressure and work rate will be effective in neutralizing Andrade's output as the fight goes into later rounds, and it'll ultimately earn him the victory in my eyes. Although once David gets going, he's kind of hard to stop, so I do see a knockout being a possibility for him. I just think it's going to be a bit of an awkward fight. I'm not saying Bubu doesn't stand a chance. I actually believe it's going to be very competitive, and Andrade could even pull it out, but it just feels a lot less likely. So all in all, I'm pretty excited for this fight, both of them. I want to thank both of them for making it happen, but I got David by UD.